Okay, let's start. I'm going to share some thoughts from Norway on how to make FHIR work at the national level. My name is Øyvind Aassve. I'm an integration architect at Sykehuspartner, which is the main IT service provider for the Southeastern Hospital region in Norway. I'm also the chair of HL7 Norway Technical Steering Committee and have been involved in HL7 work since Norway's membership in 2010. So Norway was a quite early adopter when it came to FHIR. With our first interface we had in production in DSG1 in 2015, and quite early we saw the need to do some standardization across the profiles that was being developed in different parts of the country. So this work is I'm presenting now is our thoughts on how this can be done in order to create the maximum level of semantic interoperability at the national level. To communicate the value of this work, we think it's important to put weight on that it should be easy for consuming applications on the national level, in that the information structures and the content of the APIs across services and applications are as similar as possible. So basically the plug and play principle. Applications should not have variations that make it necessary for consuming applications who need a specific small set of information maybe to develop and maintain a specific set of services to each applications they're going to integrate to. This is also very important in order to succeed with platform philosophy, where you want to build ecosystems of all kinds of consumers who can drive innovation and value driven by third-party vendors. So this is the challenge. Then how do we think we can achieve plug and play for the consumers? And this is where the national framework for profiling comes in. It's 4 levels. The 2 interesting ones are the 2 in the middle, the national profiling levels. The top is of course the international resource as described in the FHIR spec. The base profile is necessary adaptations to the international profiles for Norwegian context, independent of use case. It's a minimum set. The national domain profile is recommended across, that is, adaptations that are recommended across interfaces for a given context or use case. Implemented profile is what is actually implemented in an application service. It can also contain information that is not inherited from the levels above. So if you look at the first of these 2 levels, it's national base profiles, are the fundamental adaptations independent of use case. So we take the international resource, put on national identifiers for person, healthcare personnel, location, etc. We put on we bind to national coding requirements that are not international reusable, and put in common national extensions. We have no use of must support, for example. This is a very minimum set of profiling. As of now, we have 15 approved profiles, and this is continuing, and the prioritization is driven by needs in actual projects. When it comes then to the second level of national domain national profiles, is what we call the national domain profile. This is adaptation of international resource for a specific use case. So this represents information structures that can be reused across implementations for the defined use case. A national domain profile can be used directly or profiled further for use in specific implementation. Yeah. So how do we do profiling on the domain level? While FHIR has been very agile compared to other traditional standardization activities, and this has given a tremendous boost and for adoption and quality of the standardization work. Adoption is now widespread, that there is a need for more on the standardization side, because there is need for wider scale interoperability. And we see that HL7 they are focusing on central implementation guides that cover big areas like the accelerated programs, and we also have a expanded focus on implementation guidance in addition to the standards development, of course. So in theory, we see 3 possible levels of ambitions for the ecosystem you want to your FHIR profile to enable. The vendor-oriented is kind of what was inherited internationally. Typically what you see in big tech to keep developers on your platform, and we also see it a little bit in health. Some of the profiles we have in Norway are also influenced by which vendor has developed it. We can say that we could go one level higher and say, okay, we want to do the standardize the profiling on the national level and sit down and do this in committees. Or we could say we want to do it on an international level. And yeah, our choice is to do an international oriented profiles. Why do we want that? That is because clinical interoperability needs are not particular to Norway. It's resource effective as we lack FHIR expertise in Norway. We want to draw on international efforts, experience, and expertise. We want to facilitate interoperability with international vendor market, and we want to facilitate interoperability across international borders. But how do we achieve it? Yes, we achieve it by reusing in our domain profiling the central international implementation guides. In the FHIR specification, for example, there are some profiles, vital signs we have already used in Norway as specified by the FHIR specification. You have Argonaut US Core, which is central to driving the US vendor market, and that is of course influencing also Norway. International patient summary, which is an European standard and will be an ISO standard. We have accelerator programs like, for example, MCode and Codex for cancer information. And you are also integrating the health enterprise, IHE, which have been doing profiling on other standards for many years, and now put efforts into a lot of efforts into profiling FHIR. You have OpenEHR. We have been using, this is not for Exchange, but we use the models in OpenEHR for some of our extensions in Norway, as OpenEHR is a popular standard in Norway. So we have also made some principles. I'm not going to go through these. They are available online, though in Norwegian, but Google Translate can solve that. But for example, we say that the domain profile should be, or the use case, the context for the domain profile should be clearly defined. It should be based on national base profiles where they exist. They should be independent of integration architecture and could be able to be used in API messages, document, etc. For a project who is going to relate to this hierarchy of profiles, the project has to identify first the information to be exchanged, map this to relevant FHIR resources, as in any FHIR project. Then it's the process to look at the artifacts from the profiling framework and reuse if possible. Does it exist? No basis profiles for our use case? If not, is there a need? There will not always be a need. If there is a need, and there is none, the project has a responsibility to initiate and contribute to the community process and to create a base profile. The same process applies to domain profiles. And at the end, you have an implemented profile. Hopefully, this will, in a few years, there will be necessary base profiles and domain profiles. So this is not something that very many projects has to be involved in. So this is a framework. This is our thoughts. We need experiences to try this out. What is, for example, a domain? What international standard list implementation guides will be relevant for us? How do you relate to coding system requirements from international implementation guides? So to sum up, FHIR has given us freedom, but with freedom comes also responsibility. We want our national FHIR community to use and contribute to developing top-down standardization artifacts. This is FHIR base and domain profiles, but FHIR should also be used to cover the local needs that are not deemed reusable in a national context. That is the top-down and the bottom-up arrows. The thing is on the right is the project need to find the sweet spot between these two. And don't do it alone. Employ the power of the community. Here are some links, and I'm ready for questions. Thank you very much.
All right, clear video, short 10 minutes. Must be hard to fit so much information in such a short time period. I hope it wasn't too hard and you had to leave like too much information out. Is there maybe some points that you want to elaborate on now that there is some extra time? We have 10 minutes left. People feel free to ask questions, or do you want to elaborate yourself a bit on your presentation?
I can say that the status now is that what we're curious now is how to develop it. And this is kind of a little bit retrospective developed, as we see in the medication field, for example, that things have profiles on medication resources have been developed in different projects in different regions, in national services, in medicinal catalog from the drug agencies, and they are not really harmonized. So this is, for example, the medication is where we want to go in and see, okay, what should be harmonized, what are the common structures that are we recommend to use in this area, and then also identify, are there different areas, different domains where we then basically say that, okay, these reusable structures apply to this domain, but there are other set of reusable structures applying to another common domain, for example. So yeah. It was quite intense, a lot of information in 10 minutes. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Yeah, there is one question for now. The first question is, how big is the FHIR community in Norway and which stakeholders are present?
Yeah, this is a very crucial part of the whole FHIR strategy, is to enable this community and build this community. And this community, I will say, is under development. We have it is in HL7 Norway is kind of organizing this, and we have over the years had interest. We have had participation from different kinds of vendor participants, vendors, consultancies, hospitals, national agencies, and the directorate of eHealth have also, and Norsk Helsenett, the service provider, have been developing also profiles over the years. So what we're doing now is to enable, we're establishing then websites where we share best practices. We have now established like a forum that's going to be every 6 weeks, for example, 1.5 hour open discussions with an agenda where we share practices, experiences, and stuff like that. So it is, how big it is, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's of people who really knows FHIR, it's not very big, but there is now, over the years, been quite a number of implementations, and we have some different groups of people who knows a lot, and we try to gather them now in this community.
Right, great. Thank you very much for your answer. Then there is another question. What are the different disciplines you brought to the table for your national profiles?
Yeah, what disciplines?
I will repeat it one more time, actually. I made a stumble. What are the different disciplines you brought to the table for your national profiles?
Yeah, so the national profiles, basically how it works is that there is the project, it's being developed. We see a project who is starting to use a resource that has not been developed before. This project has then the driving role and will lift that, okay, we're starting using this profile, and there is a need for, we should have a base profile. We see we need a base profile for this resource. And then we have the expertise of the projects. The project, of course, have been in a little bit digging a little bit deep in requirements for this kind of profile, and then we gather the whole community. So typically we have a full day workshop when we have a set of profiles where we have a proposition, let's say for a project. This proposition is then presented at this one-day meeting and discussed, and then there is and after that there's a hearing. So it's all kind of, and then let's say if we have the medication resources that are we are doing base profiles on medication resources, then we will make sure to invite all the people that are important in this regard. So people we know a lot about the medication resources or the medication domain from being a doctor or working in the drug agencies, for example. So it's quite cross-discipline, these workshops, when we develop the profiles. If that answered the question.
I think it was a clear answer. All right, then we have another question. Have you done any integration to quality registries?
We are in the process of doing that. That is a very interesting field, and we're looking into how to use FHIR there. We do not have base profiles per now, but we're actually having a project. We had some projects working in this area and with conceptually how to use FHIR, and we also have one project now. I think we can say that are starting up now with international FHIR expertise on reporting to the cancer registry. So, but this is an area we have put up for next year as an area we would like to dig deeper into. How do we best use FHIR in reporting to quality registers? Because it's a little bit complicated, because the variables don't really always can be put into standard information models like FHIR.
All right. So the foundation is there, but still needs some work. Then there's one more question before we run out of time. I'm just going to pick the top one. How are you using MCode and Codex?
Currently, we don't. So this list of international profiles, international implementation guides, was kind of a brutto list, or what do you say, a maximum list. It's not even a maximum list, but it's typical examples of implementation guides that we see we expect to be significant in the future. And when we're developing the domain profiles, we want to be internationally oriented. We want to base our domain profiles on international relevant implementation guides. And then this choice is actually then done when doing the domain profile. What kind of coding systems, what kind of structures should we use? And so MCode Codex, typically, let's say when we're, and it might even come up, I don't know, with this cancer registry integration. I don't know the details of the information requirements there as of now. But we see that is a good reference the day we want to report on cancer information. We would look to MCode Codex and try to be compliant where that is possible. But it is in the process of creating the domain profile is actually where we choose also which international implementation guides to reference to.
All right, great. Thank you very much for your time and for the video that was too short, but very clear nevertheless. Well, this was the end of the presentation. We are 1 minute over time, so yeah, we gotta give people time to go to the next session. But thanks everybody for joining, and most of all, thank you very much for this great presentation.
Thank you very much, and have a good conference, everyone. And don't hesitate to fire off an email or something later.